Only through suffering can man discover who he truly is. You believe that the purpose of life is to be comfortable, to walk through existence as if it were a well-paved road where nothing sharp ever touches your feet. You are wrong. Life is not made for comfort, but for creation, and creation demands suffering. The man who avoids pain avoids himself, because his deepest self can only be born in fire. Look into the history of mankind. All greatness was purchased with agony. The heroes you admire, the thinkers you quote, the artists whose works you consume, they were not blessed with an easy existence. They were crucified by their struggles, and it was through these very crucifixions that they rose beyond the common herd. You want strength without weight, wisdom without wounds, joy without sacrifice. This is childish dreaming. The body becomes strong only when it strains against resistance. The mind becomes sharp only when it wrestles with contradictions. The soul becomes vast only when it endures the storms of despair. Do you not see that every attempt to flee pain is an attempt to remain small? That every avoidance of difficulty is a confession of weakness? The world does not give greatness freely. It asks for your blood, your sweat, your sleepless nights, your loneliness. Only when you have paid this price will you begin to see the outline of your higher self. The age in which you live is an age of escape. Men numb themselves with endless distractions, with glowing screens, with shallow pleasures. They call this happiness, but it is only anesthesia. They do not feel pain because they do not feel life. They are like men floating on the surface of the ocean, refusing to dive because the depths might crush them. But it is in the depths where the treasures lie. You can spend your whole life on the surface, smiling, laughing, and dying inside. Or you can descend into the darkness, risk suffocation, and return with pearls no one else has ever touched. Suffering, when confronted with courage, is not destruction, but transformation. It strips you of illusions. It tears down the fragile idols you build around yourself. It reveals to you the truth of your own being. Do not curse it. Listen to it. Each wound has a message. Each scar carries wisdom. When you run from your suffering, you run from the very teacher that was sent to forge you. When you embrace it, you discover that what felt like death was in fact the birth of a new form of strength. Ask yourself, what kind of life do you wish to live? One of shallow pleasures, or one that burns with intensity? Do you want to remain among the herd, grazing safely in the pasture? Or do you dare to climb the mountain where the air is thin, the path treacherous, but the view eternal? The choice is yours. But know this, if you choose the pasture, you will never know who you truly are. You will die as you were born, small, forgotten, unnecessary. If you choose the mountain, you may bleed, you may fall, you may suffer, but you will live as one who has conquered. Do not confuse this with glorifying suffering for its own sake. Suffering is not a goal, it is a gateway. It is not to be sought as pleasure, but to be embraced when it comes. You do not need to chase pain, it will find you. What matters is how you respond when it arrives. The coward curses it, the weak collapse beneath it, but the strong transform it. They use it as fuel, as fire, as the very soil in which their greatness grows. Think of your greatest moments of joy. Were they not always preceded by struggle? Was not every victory born from a battle? The sweetness of triumph is inseparable from the bitterness that came before. You cannot separate them without destroying both. Joy without suffering is shallow. Growth without struggle is an illusion. Freedom without sacrifice is a lie. So I say to you, stop praying for an easy life. Stop dreaming of days without difficulty. Instead, pray for strength. Pray for the courage to face what others run from. Pray for the will to transform suffering into greatness. Life will test you, that is certain. But whether you emerge broken or reborn depends only on whether you embrace the necessity of pain. This is the beginning of your education. Suffering is not the enemy. It is your greatest ally. It is the hammer that shapes you, the fire that refines you, the weight that gives you strength. If you would rise, you must first be broken. If you would be free, you must first be chained. If you would create, you must first destroy. The coward avoids this law of existence and remains a shadow. The strong accept it and become men. So let this be your first lesson. Do not hide from suffering. Step into it. Carry it. Endure it. For in the furnace of your pain lies the birth of your destiny. And one day, if you endure, you will look back and say, "It was good that I suffered, for it was in suffering that I learned to become myself." You speak of freedom as if it were a gift that could be handed to you, wrapped in silk, offered without cost. But freedom is not given, it is earned, and its price is suffering. To free yourself from the chains of weakness, of cowardice, of mediocrity, you must first endure the agony of breaking them. Every chain cuts into the flesh as it snaps. Every prison wall collapses only after struggle. There is no liberation without wounds. The modern soul, however, seeks freedom without pain. It imagines liberty as comfort, the right to avoid discomfort, the right to live without disturbance. But this is not freedom. It is slavery disguised as leisure. You are not free if you cannot endure hardship. You are not free if you are a prisoner of your own fear of pain. You are not free if every difficulty makes you retreat. True freedom begins where your fear of suffering ends. Consider the warrior who walks into battle. He does not expect safety. He knows the ground will be soaked with blood, perhaps his own. Yet he marches forward, for he has chosen the possibility of death over the certainty of living as a slave. This is freedom, the will to embrace risk, to carry suffering willingly, to say yes even to the hardest burdens. The weak say, "Protect me from pain." The strong say, "Let pain come. I will turn it into power." You have been deceived by a culture that glorifies ease. You are told that progress is comfort, that technology will erase every difficulty, that medicine will remove every ache, that society will shelter you from every storm. But the more you are sheltered, the weaker you become. Like a bird kept in a cage, you forget how to fly. Your wings atrophy, your spirit shrinks, until you are incapable of facing even the smallest trial. And then you dare to call yourself free. No, you are merely tamed, domesticated, harmless. Freedom is not the absence of suffering, but the mastery of it. It is the ability to look pain in the eye and say, "You will not break me, I will make you my servant." The man who has suffered deeply is not easily shaken. He is not terrified by small misfortunes, because he has faced greater ones. He is not destroyed by loss, because he has learned that loss is inevitable. He walks with a strength that others cannot understand, because his soul has been tempered in fire. Ask yourself, do you want to live as a fragile creature, shivering at every discomfort, or as one who walks unafraid through storm and fire? The fragile man spends his life begging for safety, yet he dies without ever having lived. The strong man endures wounds, scars, and exhaustion, yet he dies as one who has conquered. The world remembers only those who dared to suffer greatly, because only they rose above the common mass. Do not imagine that this path is easy. It is not. It will break you again and again. But each time you rise from the ground, you rise stronger, more unshakable. The weak fall once and never rise again. The strong fall 100 times and stand up 101. This is the secret of freedom. Not that you never suffer, but that you never surrender to suffering. Look at the great creators of the past. The philosopher who wrote through madness, the poet who sang through despair, the explorer who crossed seas filled with storms. Do you think they were free because life was kind to them? No. They were free because they refused to bow before hardship. They suffered, yes, but they did not curse their suffering. They transformed it. This is the alchemy of greatness, the turning of pain into strength, of wounds into wisdom, of chains into wings. Do not waste your life begging for comfort. Do not waste your energy cursing your pain. Instead, demand of yourself that you become strong enough to carry it. Welcome it as the raw material of your freedom. Say to yourself, "This suffering is mine, and it will make me." In this way, no force on earth can enslave you. for nothing external can control the one who has mastered his own pain. So I tell you again, freedom is suffering embraced, not avoided. It is the path of scars, not of cushions. The man who avoids suffering becomes a servant of fear, of pleasure, of others. The man who embraces suffering becomes his own master. You must choose. Do you wish to live safe, weak, and forgotten? Or do you dare to suffer, to endure, to rise, and to call yourself free? Let this be your second lesson. The chains that bind you are not outside, but within. They are your fear of pain, your hunger for comfort, your refusal to endure hardship. Break them and you will bleed. Break them and you will suffer. But only then will you stand as a free man, unchained, unbroken, and alive. You fear solitude because it confronts you with yourself. You flee into noise, into company, into the endless chatter of others, because silence reveals what you truly are. But if you would become strong, if you would transform suffering into greatness, you must first learn to endure the suffering of being alone. For solitude is not emptiness. It is the crucible in which the self is forged. The man who cannot endure solitude cannot endure freedom. He is chained to the crowd, enslaved by the opinions of others, a mirror reflecting their voices rather than his own. He seeks constant approval, constant distraction, constant escape from the terror of his own thoughts. And so he remains weak, because he never dares to face the battlefield within. The greatest struggle is not against the world outside you, but against the abyss inside you. Only in solitude do you encounter this abyss, and only by enduring it can you conquer yourself. Modern man dreads being alone because he has nothing within. He has filled himself with trivialities, with fragments of borrowed opinions, with the shallow pleasures of the herd. When he is left alone, the mask falls, and he sees that there is nothing behind it. This is why solitude feels like suffering, because it reveals the emptiness of your soul. But if you can face that emptiness without running, if you can stare into the abyss without blinking, then you can begin the work of creation. For only he who has nothing within can begin to build. Do not confuse solitude with isolation. The coward isolates himself to escape life. The strong man seeks solitude to confront it more deeply. Solitude is not withdrawal, but concentration. It is not weakness, but strength. It is not an escape from reality, but a deeper immersion in it. To sit in silence with your own thoughts is to stand in the furnace of truth, where every lie about yourself is burned away. It is painful, yes, but necessary. For how can you become something great if you do not first know who you are? Think of the great creators, the thinkers, the visionaries. Did they not all embrace solitude? They withdrew from the crowd not because they despised men, but because they needed silence to give birth to something greater. The herd consumes itself with noise, but the Creator requires silence. In that silence, he wrestles with his demons. He listens to the whisper of his destiny. He suffers the anguish of doubt and despair. And from that suffering, he creates what the world cannot ignore. You too must pass through solitude if you would rise above the herd. Do not flee from it. Enter it willingly. Feel the loneliness, the silence, the void pressing upon you. It will hurt, it will terrify you, it will strip you bare. But endure it, and you will find within yourself a strength you never imagined. The man who has conquered solitude can walk among men without needing them, can stand against the world without fearing it, can suffer without being broken. He is whole, because he has faced the abyss of his own soul and lived. Suffering in solitude teaches you endurance. It teaches you to find meaning not in others, but in yourself. It teaches you to rely on your own spirit, to draw strength from your own depths, to trust your own vision even when the world laughs. Without solitude, you will always be dependent, always weak, always afraid. With solitude, you become unshakable. But beware, solitude without purpose can destroy. It can become despair, bitterness, madness. The key is not merely to endure solitude, but to transform it. Do not sit in silence merely to suffer. Sit in silence to listen, to learn, to create. Let your solitude become fertile. Let your suffering bear fruit. If you endure without purpose, you will rot. If you endure with purpose, you will rise. This is why solitude is feared by the many and embraced by the few. The many seek comfort in the crowd, because the crowd absolves them of responsibility. They say, we think, we believe, we feel. They dissolve into the herd, safe but insignificant. The few say, I think, I believe, I create. They endure solitude, they suffer it, but they transform it into something eternal. And it is they whom history remembers. So I say to you, seek solitude, not to escape life, but to discover it. Do not drown in the noise of the herd. Dare to face yourself. Dare to endure the silence. Dare to wrestle with your own soul. It will not be easy. You will be tempted to run back into the crowd, to cover your ears with noise, to numb your suffering with distractions. Resist, stay, endure. For in that suffering you will find the seeds of your true self. This is your third lesson. Solitude is suffering, but it is the suffering that gives birth to freedom. Embrace it, and you will no longer need the herd. Embrace it, and you will no longer be enslaved by noise. Embrace it, and you will walk through the world as one who has faced himself and overcome. And when you return from solitude, you will not return empty. You will return bearing the fruits of your struggle, carrying the strength of one who has conquered the abyss. You dream of greatness, yet you despise discipline. You want the reward without the struggle, the harvest without the labor, the crown without the thorns. But discipline is suffering voluntarily chosen, and without it, you will never rise above mediocrity. Every man suffers, but not every man chooses how to suffer. The weak suffer passively, tossed about by chance, complaining at every wound. The strong suffer with purpose, directing their pain toward the creation of something higher. This is the essence of discipline: to suffer willingly, to suffer daily, to transform suffering into strength. Look at the athlete who prepares for battle. He does not curse the weight he must lift or the exhaustion of his training. He embraces it because he knows that every repetition, every drop of sweat, every aching muscle is a step toward victory. He suffers, but his suffering has meaning. Contrast him with the idle man who seeks comfort in every moment. The idle man suffers too. His body decays, his spirit weakens, his days dissolve into emptiness. His suffering is meaningless because it is born not of effort, but of avoidance. The truth is simple. You will suffer either way. Discipline is the choice to suffer in a way that elevates you. Modern men despise discipline because it reminds them of their weakness. They want shortcuts, hacks, and instant results. They invent machines to make every task easier, medicines to numb every pain, distractions to occupy every moment. They call this progress, but it is only decay in disguise. For every labor removed, every discomfort avoided, steals from them the chance to grow. They become softer, smaller, emptier. Their bodies may live longer, but their souls die young. Discipline, by contrast, awakens the soul. It demands sacrifice, patience, endurance. It teaches you to master yourself before you attempt to master the world. Without discipline, your desires rule you. With discipline, you rule them. Without discipline, you are tossed about by moods and temptations. With discipline, you become unshakable, for you have forged yourself in fire. The undisciplined man cannot be free because he is a slave to his impulses. The disciplined man, though he suffers daily, is free because he has made suffering his servant. Ask yourself, what is the worth of a man who cannot endure the smallest hardship? What can he create? What can he achieve if he flees from effort? He may live in comfort, but he will die forgotten. His existence a shadow that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Now ask, what is the worth of a man who endures daily suffering with discipline, who bends his will against resistance, who bleeds for something higher? He may die with scars, but he will leave behind a legacy. His name will not vanish because his suffering was transformed into creation. Do not think that discipline applies only to warriors or athletes. It is the foundation of all greatness. The thinker who writes through sleepless nights, the artist who labors endlessly on his craft, the leader who bears the weight of responsibility. All are bound by discipline. They know that their suffering is not in vain. They suffer now so that something greater may be born. Without this discipline, their genius would remain a seed buried in the soil, never breaking into the light. Discipline is the daily crucifixion of comfort. It is waking when you would rather sleep, working when you would rather rest, enduring when you would rather quit. It is saying yes to the long path and no to the easy escape. Each act of discipline is an act of defiance against weakness. Each sacrifice is a declaration of freedom from mediocrity. And though it hurts, though it grinds you down, it also builds you up. The more you suffer through discipline, the stronger you become, until the suffering itself becomes your joy. But beware, discipline without vision becomes slavery. To endure suffering without purpose is to destroy yourself. Discipline must be directed toward a higher goal, a vision that gives meaning to your struggle. The ascetic who punishes himself for nothing becomes a hollow shell, his suffering wasted. The true disciple of greatness chooses his suffering wisely, endures it with eyes fixed on his destiny, and transforms it into creation. This is the art of discipline. Not suffering for suffering's sake, but suffering for the sake of becoming. So I say to you, do not flee from discipline. Embrace it as your ally. Let it carve you, refine you, shape you into one who can endure anything. Begin with small acts. Deny yourself the easy indulgence. Endure the discomfort of effort. Face the tasks you dread. Each time you do, you declare war against weakness. Each time you choose discipline over comfort, you move closer to freedom. And as you endure, as you suffer willingly, you will discover that what once seemed unbearable becomes your strength. This is your fourth lesson. Greatness is not born of chance, but of discipline. You must choose your suffering and choose it daily. Do not ask for an easy life. Ask for the strength to endure the discipline that will make you great. For in the end, you will either suffer the agony of discipline or the agony of regret. And of these two, only one leads to freedom. You speak often of courage, yet you misunderstand what courage is. You imagine that courage is the absence of fear, a kind of blind boldness that feels no trembling. But courage is not the denial of fear. It is the decision to endure suffering, despite it. To be courageous is to look into the abyss of pain, of loss, of death itself, and to say, I will not flee. The coward suffers from fear and flees. The brave man suffers from fear and stays. Suffering is the birthplace of courage. Without suffering, what need have you for bravery? When the path is easy, when the sky is clear, when every comfort surrounds you, courage lies dormant. It is only when you are struck by storms, when you are cut by wounds, when you are crushed beneath burdens, that courage awakens. It rises in the heart like fire, burning against despair. Courage is forged in the crucible of suffering. Look at the soldier who steps onto the battlefield. He knows he may not return. The air smells of blood, the earth shakes with thunder, the shadow of death looms above him. Fear gnaws at his soul, and yet he marches forward. What drives him? Not ignorance of suffering, but acceptance of it. He has chosen to risk his life because he values something greater than life itself. His courage is his victory, even if he falls. Now look at yourself. How often do you flee from smaller battles? You avoid the difficult conversation, the painful truth, the hard decision. You shield yourself from the suffering of risk, from the discomfort of honesty, from the terror of failure. You call this wisdom, but it is cowardice. And cowardice is nothing but a refusal to suffer. The man who fears suffering more than he desires greatness will never rise above mediocrity. He will live quietly, comfortably, and die forgotten. Courage does not mean you will always win. Often, courage means you will suffer, perhaps even lose. But in that suffering, you discover what you are made of. The coward never learns his limits, for he never dares to test them. The brave man knows his limits because he has broken them. He has suffered, fallen, bled, and risen again. Each scar is a reminder of his courage, each wound a testament that he dared when others did not. Do not mistake me. I do not call you to reckless suffering. Courage is not foolishness. It is not throwing yourself into the fire without reason. True courage chooses its suffering wisely. It weighs the risk, it considers the cost, and still it steps forward. It does not seek pain for its own sake, but accepts pain as the price of greatness. Cowardice avoids pain at any cost. Courage embraces it when the cause is worthy. Your age is an age of cowards. Men hide behind comfort, behind technology, behind excuses. They glorify safety as the highest virtue. They imagine that to be safe is to be alive. But what is life without risk? What is freedom without danger? What is love without the possibility of loss? To demand safety above all is to demand slavery. Only the courageous are free, because only they accept the suffering that freedom requires. Consider the thinker who challenges the lies of his age. He risks ridicule, exile, even death. He suffers the loneliness of standing apart from the herd. Yet without his courage, truth would remain buried. Consider the artist who pours his soul into his work. He suffers rejection, misunderstanding, poverty. Yet without his courage, beauty would remain unborn. Consider the one who dares to live fully, to risk heartbreak, to risk failure, to risk loss. He suffers deeply, yes, but he also drinks from the full cup of life. Ask yourself, will you live as a coward, seeking only safety, fleeing every suffering, hiding from every challenge? Or will you dare to suffer for something greater? Will you risk failure to achieve victory? Will you endure pain to discover your strength? Will you walk into the storm, not because you are unafraid, but because you refuse to bow to fear? This is the essence of courage. Not that you are free from fear, but that you carry your fear as you suffer and still move forward. Courage is the will to embrace suffering in the service of your destiny. It is the strength to say yes to the pain that others refuse. It is the choice to live fully, even if it costs you everything. So let this be your fifth lesson. Courage is born from suffering. Do not wait for fear to disappear. It never will. Do not wait for the path to become easy. It never will. Instead, step forward now, trembling if you must, bleeding if you must, suffering if you must. For in that suffering lies your courage, and in that courage lies your freedom. You flee from death as if it were the ultimate enemy, but I tell you, without the presence of death, your life would have no weight, no urgency, no meaning. Death is the silent shadow that walks beside you, reminding you that every choice matters, that every moment slips irretrievably into eternity. You fear it because it confronts you with the truth, that all comfort will be stripped away, all illusions shattered, all pretenses burned. But if you embrace the suffering that comes from facing death, you will be reborn into a life of intensity, of purpose, of freedom. The coward hides from death, building walls of distraction around himself. He fills his days with trivialities, with noise, with the endless pursuit of pleasure, all to drown out the whisper of mortality. Yet no matter how loud he shouts, death still waits. His avoidance does not protect him. It only makes him smaller, more fragile, more afraid. In the end, he dies as he lived, shallow, unprepared, forgotten. The strong man does not flee death. He faces it. He looks into its cold eyes and feels the suffering it brings, the trembling of his body, the terror of his soul, the anguish of impermanence. And yet he does not collapse. He says, "Yes, I will die. But until then, I will live as one who has conquered." This confrontation with death does not weaken him. It awakens him. Every breath becomes precious, every act meaningful, every suffering a step toward greatness. Do you not see? It is precisely because you will die that you must suffer to create, to rise, to overcome. If life were endless, you would drift forever in mediocrity, postponing greatness until tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Death is the fire that burns away your excuses. It is the weight that presses upon you, demanding that you act now, that you endure now, that you transform now. Without death, you would remain asleep. With death, you are forced to awaken. Look at history. The greatest men lived with death constantly before them. The warrior on the battlefield, the philosopher persecuted for his truths, the artist starving for his work. All of them suffered under the shadow of mortality, and yet this suffering did not crush them. It gave them urgency. They knew that their time was short, that each day was a gift already slipping away. And so they labored, endured, sacrificed. Their greatness was forged in the knowledge of death. You too must learn to suffer the truth of death. Do not hide from cemeteries, from hospitals, from the old and dying. Look at them. See yourself in them. Feel the terror that rises in your chest, the despair that whispers that nothing lasts. Do not flee this suffering, embrace it. For it is only when you carry death with you that you begin to live as one who has no time to waste. Death teaches you what truly matters. The comfort you worship will vanish. The pleasures you chase will fade. But the strength you build through suffering, the greatness you create through endurance, the truth you forge through struggle, these remain. Death cannot erase them. The coward leaves nothing behind but dust. The strong man leaves a mark upon eternity. This is the difference between suffering wasted and suffering transformed. Do not ask for a painless death, nor for a painless life. Ask instead for the strength to face pain without collapse, to suffer with dignity, to endure with purpose. Ask that your death, whenever it comes, will not find you as one who lived in fear, but as one who burned brightly, who suffered greatly, who transformed every wound into wisdom. Then even in death you will not be defeated. Consider this. The man who lives in fear of death dies 1,000 times before the end. Every illness terrifies him. Every risk paralyzes him. Every loss shatters him. But the man who has embraced death suffers once at the end. And until then, he lives with freedom. For nothing can frighten him who has already suffered the thought of death. He is untouchable, unbreakable, alive in a way the coward will never understand. So I tell you, do not curse death. Do not waste your life fleeing its shadow. Instead, suffer its truth, endure its terror, embrace its presence. Let it remind you that time is short, that greatness demands urgency, that every day is a battlefield where you must choose between weakness and strength. In this way, death becomes not your enemy, but your sternest teacher. This is your 6th lesson. Suffering in the face of death is not destruction, but liberation. To carry death with you is to carry the fire that gives life meaning. Let it burn away your laziness, your cowardice, your illusions. Let it drive you to endure, to rise, to create. Then, when your final suffering comes, you will not meet it as a slave, but as one who has already conquered. And even in death, you will be free. You dream of creating something lasting, something eternal, yet you shrink back when you encounter the suffering that creation demands. Creation is not the child of comfort. It is the offspring of struggle, of agony, of wounds born in silence. Every true act of creation, whether of art, of thought, or of life itself, is a birth, and every birth comes with pain. The mother cries out as she brings forth new life. The artist bleeds as he brings forth new beauty. The thinker suffers as he brings forth new truth. If you would create, you must be willing to suffer. The coward admires creation, but does not dare to create. He delights in the song, the painting, the invention, the philosophy, yet he flees the suffering from which they were born. He wants the product without the process, the fruit without the soil, the light without the fire. But greatness does not grow in the fields of comfort. It grows in the barren desert, in the storm, in the furnace. If you seek to create something worthy, you must endure the barrenness, the storm, the fire. Creation demands sacrifice. It demands sleepless nights, loneliness, doubt, despair. It demands that you face failure again and again, that you endure ridicule, that you bear the weight of incomprehension. The herd will mock you because your vision disturbs their slumber. They will call you mad, arrogant, dangerous. Their words will cut like knives. Their rejection will sting like fire. Yet if you cannot suffer this, you are not worthy to create. Only the one who suffers the scorn of the herd can give birth to something that transcends it. Look at the great artists, thinkers, and inventors of history. Did they live in comfort? No. They lived in torment. They struggled with poverty, with isolation, with inner demons. Their creations were forged in the darkness of suffering, and yet it was this very suffering that gave their works depth, weight, power. A song born without pain is shallow. A thought born without struggle is empty. A life lived without suffering is forgotten. Creation requires that you bleed into what you bring forth. Do not imagine that creation is only for the rare genius. Each man is called to create, not merely art, not merely ideas, but himself. You are called to create your life as a work of art, to shape your soul as a sculpture, to carve your destiny as one carves stone. And just as the sculptor strikes the marble again and again with his hammer, so must you strike yourself with discipline, with courage, with suffering. Each blow hurts, but each blow reveals the form hidden within. Without suffering, you remain unshaped marble, a block of wasted potential. Creation is destruction. To build, you must first tear down. To rise, you must first collapse. To be born anew, you must first die to your old self. This destruction is painful. It feels like loss, like chaos, like death. But without it, no creation is possible. The seed must crack, the soil must be broken, the old structure must fall. Only through this suffering can the new form emerge. If you would create yourself, you must be willing to suffer the destruction of who you are in order to become who you could be. Modern men want to create without destroying. They want newness without sacrifice, transformation without death. They build on weak foundations, piling comfort upon comfort, illusion upon illusion. Their creations crumble because they were never forged in fire. They are like houses of paper, impressive for a moment, but gone with the first storm. True creation endures because it is born of suffering. The building that survives the earthquake is the one that has already endured pressure. The soul that creates something eternal is the one that has already endured torment. Ask yourself, what are you creating with your life? Are you wasting your days in trivial pleasures, or are you shaping yourself into something worthy of eternity? Every moment of suffering you endure willingly becomes part of your creation. Every hardship you embrace becomes a chisel in your hand. Every scar you carry becomes a line in the sculpture of your soul. Do not despise your suffering. It is your raw material. Without it, you have nothing to work with. Yes, creation hurts. It will drain you, exhaust you, crush you. There will be nights when you want to give up, mornings when you wake with despair. But endure, endure, and you will see that your suffering was not meaningless. It was the very path by which your creation came to life. One day, you will look at what you have created, at the strength you have forged, at the self you have become, and you will say, it was worth the suffering. So let this be your seventh lesson. Suffering is the price of creation. Without it, nothing great is born. With it, everything becomes possible. Do not run from the labor pains of your becoming. Endure them, embrace them, for in them lies the birth of your higher self, the creation of your destiny, the shaping of your eternity. You speak of destiny as if it were a chain, a burden imposed upon you by fate. Yet destiny is neither punishment nor gift. It is a mirror. It reflects your strengths and your weaknesses, your courage and your cowardice, your willingness to endure suffering and to rise above it. To live without confronting your destiny is to live in illusion. To embrace it, suffering and all, is to walk the path of transformation. The man who resists destiny suffers twice. First, from the hardships that life imposes, and second, from his refusal to face them. He cries for injustice, curses the world, blames others for his failures, yet he does nothing to change himself. His suffering is wasted. It is a pain that dissolves in bitterness, leaving him hollow, weak, and small. He imagines he can escape destiny, yet destiny cannot be escaped. It waits, patiently, until the coward finally kneels beneath its weight. The courageous man, by contrast, meets destiny with open eyes. He does not wish for ease. He does not plead for comfort. He accepts the suffering that life has placed before him, and he asks himself, "What can I make of this? How can I transform this pain into strength?" By embracing his destiny, he transforms suffering into power, chaos into order, loss into wisdom. He understands that every hardship is not a punishment, but a tool, a teacher, a step on the ladder to his higher self. Fate is relentless, and it is cruel. It does not spare the weak or the timid. It strikes without mercy, and often without reason. But the one who has learned to endure suffering sees in fate not only danger, but opportunity. Each blow becomes a lesson, each wound becomes a key, each failure becomes the soil from which he rises stronger. To resist destiny is to suffer in vain. To embrace it is to suffer with purpose. Consider the storms of your own life, the losses that tore you apart, the betrayals that poisoned your trust, the hardships that crushed your body and spirit. These were not meaningless. They were the sculptors of your character, the chisels shaping your soul. You were given no choice in the suffering itself, but you always have choice in your response. To resist is to remain weak. To endure and transform is to become free. Love your fate. Love it with all its cruelty, all its sharp edges, all its relentless pressure. This is not easy, for your instinct is to curse, to rebel, to flee. But rebellion without creation is only pain. Acceptance without action is only despair. The man who loves his fate, who suffers willingly within its confines, transforms every obstacle into a ladder, every wound into a teacher, every hardship into power. This is the essence of greatness, the ability to endure suffering and to turn it into the raw material of life. The world will not spare you. It will mock you when you are weak, betray you when you are trusting, abandon you when you are in need. It will impose suffering without reason and demand courage without guarantee. And yet this is the canvas upon which you must paint your life. The courageous man does not curse the canvas. He uses the paint of his suffering, the brush of his endurance, and the colors of his will to create a masterpiece from chaos. Do not seek an easy destiny. It does not exist. Every life contains hardship, loss, uncertainty, and death. The difference lies not in the suffering itself, but in your approach to it. The coward flees, complains, and becomes weaker with every trial. The brave man endures, transforms, and rises with every trial. You cannot control destiny, but you can control how you carry its weight. In this, all power resides. Ask yourself, will you bend beneath the yoke of fate, or will you lift it as a weapon of your own making? Will you be crushed, or will you be forged? Suffering is inevitable, but the form it takes in your life is determined by your courage, your discipline, and your wisdom. Those who embrace their destiny suffer with dignity, and through that suffering they create themselves. Those who resist suffer in vain, and in the end they vanish into obscurity. So let this be your 8th lesson. Love your fate, embrace your suffering, and transform the relentless pressures of life into the tools of your becoming. Destiny is not your enemy. It is your mirror, reflecting what you can be if you endure, if you fight, if you create. To suffer is to live fully. To accept suffering is to rise above the herd. To love your fate is to transcend it. You desire triumph, yet you do not understand that triumph is born of suffering. Victory is not granted to the comfortable, the weak, or the idle. It comes only to those who endure the relentless trials of life, who confront their fears, who embrace pain as a teacher rather than curse it as a tyrant. Every triumph carries the memory of suffering. Every victory is written in the ink of hardship. Every achievement is forged in the furnace of struggle. To seek triumph without suffering is to seek a shadow, an illusion, a hollow victory that will vanish at the first challenge. The weak man measures success in convenience and safety. He counts the hours he has avoided pain, the tasks he has evaded, the challenges he has escaped. And yet, what has he gained? Comfort is not triumph. Leisure is not mastery. Avoidance is not strength. He suffers nonetheless, for the emptiness of his life gnaws at his spirit. But he suffers in vain, for he does not transform, he does not grow, he does not rise. The world remembers only those who have bled to achieve their greatness, not those who slept through it. Triumph is inseparable from suffering, for suffering is the forge in which the self is strengthened. Every wound teaches endurance. Every failure teaches wisdom. Every loss teaches clarity. Do not fear these pains, do not flee them, and do not mistake them for misfortune. They are the raw materials of your becoming. The man who has endured and transformed his suffering is invincible in ways the world cannot measure. The man who has never suffered is fragile, no matter how much ease he possesses. Ask yourself, what is greatness without pain? A statue of sand, a house of glass, a song without melody. All true greatness carries the mark of endurance. The poet who writes through exhaustion, the soldier who marches through the storm, the thinker who wrestles with despair, each bears scars that are invisible to the eye but visible to the soul. These scars are proof not of weakness, but of strength. They are the signature of triumph. Yet do not mistake suffering itself for greatness. Suffering is not the goal, it is the crucible. It is only through transformation that suffering becomes power. The man who suffers and does nothing with it is no better than the man who avoids suffering entirely. He may appear tortured, he may appear profound, but he remains small, imprisoned by his own unwillingness to endure fully and act decisively. Transformation is the key. Suffering without transformation is agony. Suffering with transformation is transcendence. Consider the challenges that have come to you already. Every heartbreak, every failure, every loss, every betrayal. These were not punishments to despair over. They were instruments to shape you, fires to temper your will, trials to strengthen your vision. If you approach them with courage, discipline, and wisdom, they will forge you into a being capable of triumph. If you flee from them, you will remain weak, unshaped, a shadow of the self you might have become. The choice is yours. Endure and rise, or avoid and wither. The world delights in testing you, for it seeks to reveal the weak. But the world does not create the strong. You must do that yourself. Every challenge faced and endured voluntarily strengthens you. Every suffering accepted and transformed elevates you. Every wound acknowledged and mastered becomes a stepping stone toward greatness. The man who understands this does not pray for an easy life. He prays for strength, for endurance, for the courage to endure whatever suffering life demands. Triumph is also a matter of perspective. Many see only the glory at the summit, yet they fail to see the agony of the climb. They envy the victor without understanding the wounds borne along the path. Know this: no glory is worth achieving without suffering. No masterpiece is complete without struggle. No life of greatness exists without enduring hardship. To despise suffering is to despise triumph itself. To flee pain is to flee your own potential. So I tell you, do not seek ease. Do not seek comfort. Do not seek the painless path. Seek trials that will stretch your mind, your body, your soul. Accept suffering as a companion, not an enemy. Transform each wound into wisdom, each loss into understanding, each hardship into power. This is the path to triumph, to endure, to persevere, to rise above the suffering that would crush the unprepared. The man who walks this path is victorious not because life is kind, but because he has mastered himself. This is your 9th lesson. Triumph is inseparable from suffering. To seek victory without endurance is folly. To avoid hardship is to avoid greatness. To embrace suffering, transform it, and rise above it is the true path to freedom, power, and immortality. The man who suffers and transforms becomes invincible. The man who suffers and succumbs becomes forgotten. Choose wisely, endure fully, and let your suffering become the foundation of your triumph. You have endured, you have suffered, you have walked the paths that others feared to tread, and yet, the journey does not end with endurance alone. To live fully, to become truly great, you must integrate your suffering into the very fabric of your being. It must become the lens through which you see the world. the fire that fuels your will, the foundation upon which you build your destiny. Only then does suffering cease to be mere pain and become the instrument of your highest self. The man who has suffered and transformed himself understands that life's hardships are not curses, but invitations. Each wound asks you to rise, each loss whispers a secret, each failure offers a lesson. The coward recoils and cries injustice. The wise man endures and listens. Through suffering, he learns what is essential, what is fleeting, what is worthy of his attention and energy. He discovers that the superficial comforts of the herd are meaningless, that only struggle shapes character, that only pain can awaken the soul. Do not think this path is for the faint-hearted. It is not. The path of suffering is narrow, steep, and often cruel. It demands courage, discipline, solitude, and perseverance. It tests you relentlessly, exposing every weakness, stripping away every illusion, forcing you to confront the raw truth of your own existence. And yet, it is precisely this rigorous testing that grants power. The soul that emerges from suffering tempered and unbroken is capable of feats the world cannot imagine. It is the soul that has looked into the abyss and returned, not hollow but whole, not broken but reforged. All your life, you have been taught to fear pain, to avoid discomfort, to seek the easy path. But I tell you, the easy path leads only to mediocrity, to forgetfulness, to death without life. The path of suffering is the path of becoming. It is the road that separates the weak from the strong, the transient from the eternal, the ordinary from the extraordinary. Every scar you carry is a medal, every wound a teacher, every hardship a doorway to a higher existence. Only he who embraces this path truly lives. Consider the man who has transformed suffering into greatness. He is not afraid of solitude, for he has confronted the depths of his own mind. He is not afraid of death, for he has carried its shadow alongside him and has learned to value every fleeting moment. He is not afraid of failure, for he knows that each fall is a step upward, each defeat a lesson, each pain a building block of his character. Such a man does not simply survive life, he conquers it. He does not simply endure existence, he creates meaning from it. And now ask yourself, will you join him, or will you remain with the cowardly masses? Will you flee discomfort, escape pain, and surrender to weakness? Or will you embrace suffering, endure it with eyes open, and use it as the raw material of your becoming? The choice is yours. No one can make it for you. No external force can transform you. You must step into the fire willingly, and you must allow it to forge you. Only then can you claim your freedom, your power, your immortality. Suffering is not an end, but a beginning. Each hardship endured, each fear confronted, each wound transformed, brings you closer to the fullness of your potential. It is the furnace in which your spirit is refined, the hammer that shapes your character, the storm that tests the strength of your resolve. Do not shrink from it. Do not complain. Do not beg for relief. Step into it, absorb it, carry it, and allow it to elevate you beyond the limits of your former self. Look back upon your life with honesty. See the moments you fled, the opportunities you abandoned, the pain you refused to face. And now look forward with courage. See the path of suffering that stretches before you, not as a curse, but as a gift. It is the opportunity to become what you were meant to be, to transcend your weaknesses, to realize the full measure of your strength. It is the passage from who you were to who you can become. So I say to you, do not seek an easy life. Do not pray for comfort. Do not flee from pain. Seek instead the courage to endure, the strength to transform, the wisdom to create from suffering. Let every wound be a teacher, every hardship a stepping stone, every suffering a spark of your becoming. Embrace it fully, for it is the path to greatness. It is the path to freedom. It is the path to life itself. And when the end comes, when the final suffering, the last trial, the ultimate death approaches, you will not meet it as a broken, frightened man. You will meet it as one who has endured, one who has risen, one who has transformed every wound into power, every pain into wisdom, every hardship into freedom. You will meet it with eyes wide open, with a heart strong and free, with the soul of a creator who has walked through fire and emerged, not destroyed, but triumphant. This is your 10th and final lesson. Suffering is the gift you were given to forge yourself. Embrace it, transform it, and rise. Let it guide you, let it teach you, let it build you into the being you were meant to be. For in suffering lies the secret of greatness, the path to freedom, and the truth of your becoming. If this message moved you, do not let it end here. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join us on the path of strength, courage, and transformation. Endure the trials, embrace your suffering, and forge your greatness. Comment below, what challenge will you face today to become stronger than yesterday? Your journey starts now. Do not wait.